Dan and Becky woke to the sound of breaking glass. They could hear the intruder, or intruders, skulking about their home as they fled to the room and bolted the door. The impenetrable fortress, craftily hidden behind a wall in their bedroom, is a stately chamber, with plush carpeting, a king-sized bed, an ensuite powder room, and all of the latest tech toys and gadgetry. It also has a kitchenette chock full of bottled water, canned goods, dried goods, and packaged snacks. Everything they'd need to weather any storm. The paranoid duo had it designed specifically for the purpose of keeping them safe from what they like to call the underbelly of society. They'd always known that one day some criminal element would make their way into their upscale neighborhood in the wee hours of the night, where they would proceed to rob, terrify, and wreak havoc on its residents. And by God, they fully intended to be ready when this travesty of justice occurred. And here it came. Hooligans intruding into their lives, invading their personal space, pawing their belongings. A most unfortunate situation. But at least they were safe inside the room. No one could get through that reinforced, soundproof steel door. Becky quickly dialed 911, and they watched, waited intently for any sign that it was safe to come out. They could see the remains of their most prized possessions scattered throughout their home, but what they hadn't seen were the intruders. It simply wasn't possible for anyone to slip by their state-of-the-art, voice-activated night vision video surveillance cameras, which they'd placed at strategic points throughout the home unnoticed. Yet no one was there, and as of yet, the cameras had failed to produce one viable image to explain the extensive damage that they were seeing. Where had they gone? It seemed like forever, but the response time was actually less than 3 minutes before Dan and Becky saw the flashing lights from a police cruiser turn into their driveway and 2 officers jump out with guns at the ready. One officer cautiously scouted the perimeter of their home, while the other one simultaneously rang the bell, beat on the door, and then kicked in the door without waiting for a response. Once inside, the officers vigilantly searched every inch of the home, but found no one. The owners were gone, and the intruders, if there had been any, were also gone. The 2 men were baffled, but convinced that something had definitely happened inside this home. It was a mess. Everything was smashed to bits, yet there was nothing that they could do except to call it in, secure the property as best they could, and leave. While one officer made the call to dispatch, his partner suspiciously glanced into coat closets, storage rooms, and repeatedly called out, "Is anyone there? Please, if you're in some way incapacitated and can't speak, please find something and bang on the floor so that we can hear you." Nothing. The house remained quiet enough to hear a pin drop, prompting the 2 officers, despite their reservations, to finally leave. "Wait! Where are you going?" a hoarse Becky cried into the speaker, but got no response from either of the officers. She'd been yelling at the top of her lungs, calling after them the entire time. They either weren't listening or couldn't hear her. At first, Dan calmly jiggled the handle, then pushed on the door with the weight of his body to no avail. The door was stuck, and the 2 officers were leaving. Panic quickly set in. Their frantic efforts to get out of the room now morphed into a full-on frontal assault on their prized soundproof steel door. Dan repeatedly hurled himself against it, while Becky violently beat on it with her fists. What was happening? It almost felt like they were trapped inside an episode from The Twilight Zone, when the room suddenly went dark and all their sophisticated gadgetry lost power. Becky clung to her husband and pleaded with him, her voice an anxious whisper. "Dan, please get me out. I don't want to die here. What are we gonna do?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I honestly don't know," he reiterated, as though she hadn't heard him the first time. Luckily, Dan wouldn't have to endure another round-robin of pleading from his dear sweet wife, because the thunderous crash that came from the general direction of the bathroom sent them both into a tailspin. The two exploded up onto their feet, groping at the darkness that engulfed them. But before they could fully investigate the first crash, there was another, then another, then another. Next came the screeching sounds of furniture being dragged across the floor. Then came the whir of cabinets repeatedly opening and closing, and the rattle-crinkle crunch of packages being opened and their contents eaten. Finally, the snapping of pop cans and the slurping sound of their contents being guzzled. Chaos was breaking out all around them, and they didn't know which way to turn, because they couldn't even see their hands in front of their faces. Their safe haven had turned into a cell. No one could get in, and they couldn't get out. Having resigned to the cruel realization that they very probably wouldn't get out of this situation alive, the pair clung to each other in sheer terror. The two officers returned with a few of their colleagues the following morning, and after interviewing neighbors on either side of the home, learned of the couple's safe room. The team used a blowtorch to cut through the steel door and into the room, where they found everything in shambles, and the couple lying on the floor embracing one another. Dan and Becky had died in the wee hours of the night. A closer examination of their bodies revealed that they had literally been scared to death.